What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 118 of the Access to Combat podcast. I'm one half of your host, Hugo the Boss, Hugo got next, joined by my co-host.
It's your boy, Ray Boogie Kahuna. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down UFC Vancouver, the Ridder versus Allen. And on the boxing end, we got one particular fight taking place in Brooklyn that we're going to cover. But before we get into any of that, my brother, please tell them what the deal is.
Like, comment, subscribe, follow Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Everybody enjoying the visual portion of this podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date.
And for all of our audio listeners, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, you already know.
First fight on the card at men's bantamweight, we have Charles Jourdain going one-on-one with dangerous Davey Grant. Jourdain is 16-8-1 overall. Fighting out of Quebec, repping Canada, 29 years old. Grant is 15-7 overall. Fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, but repping the UK, 39 years old. Great fight, in my opinion, to kick off the podcast with. Davey Grant, who on paper, in my opinion, has the advantage when it comes to the grappling. So on paper, I think he should win this fight. It's going to be competitive when it comes to striking overall, but I'll edge it for Jourdain. I think he's got more tools. I think he's going to be quicker in there. While his deficiency is the grappling, and I think Davey should go to it early and often, this fight, for some reason, screams Jourdain by sub. As we know, Jourdain's got a very nasty front headlock series. And Grant's, a lot of his finished losses have come via sub. So for that reason and that reason alone, it's going to be a great fight, but I think Jourdain edges this one out. I see a sub, so I'm going to be picking a sub. Give me Jourdain by sub.
Yeah, I'm on your side here in terms of leaning Jourdain. I'll give him the home field advantage here too. So he's going to get some mythical powers because he's fighting in Canada. But you have a Davey Grant. I know he's 39 years old. They have him listed here on a 2-fight winning streak. He should realistically be on a 5, arguably 6-fight winning streak. He got robbed against Daniel Marcos, and Adrian Yanez was a very close fight. But here's what I will say. He just came up with a fight with Damon Blackshear, who also has a good front headlock series. And my brother actually just mentioned it prior to the podcast. Davey did kind of lose that first round to Damon. He was just able to pick him apart from space in the second and third round. Jourdain is not going to have the same issues in the feet that Damon did. So this is why I'm going to lean Jourdain plus the age factor. Vegas is on our side here as well. They have this fight line as a pick'em. I'm going to go the hometown guy because I think even if this fight is close and goes to decision, the judges will probably lean their guy. But I think Jourdain's going to find us up here for some reason. It just smells that way just because Davey will lean into his wrestling, especially if he's having trouble with Jourdain on the feet, which I expect him to at certain points in this fight. Give me Jourdain by sub or decision, preferably by sub. But we'll see how we bet it close to the fight time. Follow us on all social media platforms as usual.
Next fight on the card, at men's lightweight, we have Kyle Prepolec going one-on-one with Drew Dober. Prepolec is 18-9 overall. Fighting out of Ontario, repping Canada, 36 years old. Dober, 27-15 overall. Fighting out of Denver, Colorado, 36 years old. This fight is going to be a low-key banger. I think it's a little bit of a slept-on fight. Only because I don't think too many people are familiar with Prepolec. He had a short stint on the UFC before, came back after the pandemic, short notice debut, well, I guess re-debut against Benoit Saint-Denis where he got absolutely mauled. So I don't think people are going to be too high on the guy. But, you know, digging into the tape, the guy's a good striker. I think he's going to be a little more of a dynamic striker compared to Drew Dober. I think he has more tools, you know, he utilizes the kicks more. He's got a different array of kind of like the way he comes in with the angles with his striking. Nothing against Dober. Dober's got twice the experience this guy has. This guy has 27 total fights. Dober has 27 wins. That tells you a lot about the experience Dober has. Dober, on the other hand, I think this is going to be a tough fight for him because he's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's got a chin, but the chin could be waning a little bit here. And Prepolec on the other side, call him a journeyman. He really hasn't beaten anybody of crazy note, but the guy is also a dog. I think he's got underrated pop in his hands. I think this is going to be a dog fight. You probably go dog or pass here. Haven't looked at the odds. I'm assuming Prepolec is the dog. I'm going to be leaning Prepolec here for the upset. I think Dober should win just based on experience and if he goes to the wrestling. But Prepolec, I think, has what it takes to kind of just, you know, mitigate the wrestling, keep this fight on the feet. Dober doesn't really commit as much. It's going to be a banger, but give me the upset in Prepolec another Canadian on the board.
Yeah, I'm with you here. And Prepolec got mauled by BSD, but he had his moments in that fight. I actually rocked him, I think, once or twice in that contest before getting completely overwhelmed by the pressure and volume of BSD. Dober just has not looked the same over the past couple of fights. And I'm with you. He should win this fight pretty handily if he could go to the wrestling and grappling, but I don't trust him to go to the wrestling and grappling. He's a guy that has a gun in his pocket and he's constantly trying to shoot at other people and get into gunfights. This is a guy who I think has more skills and a bigger variety of attacks. This is another fight where Dober could wind up in a 50-50 striking battle and get knocked out. I don't agree with this line. You have Dober sitting at a minus 460 on some books, 480, and Prepolec coming back at a plus 360.
I didn't realize the lines were that wide.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a little closer.
I think it's a system play, man. Give me Prepolec for the upset here as well. I'm with my brother here. I don't agree with the line. Even if I didn't agree with my brother, I don't agree with the line. Drew should win this fight, but you have to trust that he's going to go to the wrestling and grappling. If it's on the feet, it's 50-50. And if it's 50-50, I'm going to go with the dog at that line. You know what I'm saying? So give me Prepolec here by knockout. Follow us on all social media platforms to see if we actually get there with the betting.
Next fight on the card at women's bantamweight, we have a debuting Melissa Croden going one-on-one with Tainara Lisboa. Croden is 6-2 overall. Fighting out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, repping Canada. No age listed. It's a little rude to assume, but I think she's around 35 years old. Lisboa is 7-3 overall. Fighting out of Brazil, repping Brazil, 34 years old. Not the most exciting fight on the card, but it's an interesting fight. I'll start on the Croden side. She's making her debut. I know she's from Canada. I know she was training in Texas for a bit. Her striking is actually pretty decent considering her record. Still a little green, you can tell, but I think she's got decent striking here. And I think this fight for the most part is going to be primarily on its feet. My biggest question here is whether or not Croden is going to be able to use her physicality to really bully Lisboa. I feel like that's how Croden has gotten a lot of her wins previously before coming to the UFC. I'm going to be leaning not really. I think Lisboa, talking about Lisboa, I know she got waxed up in her last fight. I don't think any kind of grappling is going to take place in this fight. Even the way Croden approaches her takedowns is not the cleanest. And Lisboa, you know, even though she's got the Muay Thai background, has improved her grappling defensively and offensively. She, in my opinion, is the more well-rounded fighter. She's got more experience, not as a pro, but definitely as an overall fighter. Give me Lisboa here. I'm going to say by decision. I don't know if anybody finishes anyone here. Lisboa is just a better fighter here. I think this is a little too much for Croden, unless she's improved some way, but you know, around 35, you don't really make big leaps in improvement. So give me Lisboa for the win here.
This is one of those fights where I would love to have lines available. Nothing available as of recent because this fight seems like it was made recently. But if you're asking me, I'm with my brother here. I think Lisboa is the more well-rounded fighter. I think she has a better fluidity on her feet with her striking relative to Croden. Croden kind of hops around initially, but if you understand what you're watching and have had experience watching like high-level kickboxing fights and things of that nature, you understand that Croden's fluidity with actually delivering, her delivery system of her punches and kicks is not on the same level as Lisboa, in my opinion. And I'm with her brother. I think she's improved her wrestling and grappling, Lisboa that is. I just feel like this is a lot too soon for the Canadian. This is her UFC debut. She could garner some mythical powers, but if this fight is close, and I think if she's a disrespectful enough dog, considering it is on her home turf, I think she might warrant a dog play if like the line is big enough, because this is women's MMA, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of things that can happen. For a podcast lean, I'm going to go Lisboa because I think her process is just better everywhere, and as well too, just her experience at a lot of levels. This is a girl who fought Valentina Shevchenko twice in kickboxing. She fought Norma Duman in her debut fight as a professional. She's fought better fighters, like overall. She just has a wealth of experience relative to Croden. I'm with my brother here. A lot too soon for Croden. Give me Lisboa here by decision, but we'll see how we play close to the fight time.
Next fight on the card at men's flyweight, we have Bulldog Bruno Silva going one-on-one with Peace of Mind Hyun Sung Park. Silva, 14-7-2 overall. Fighting out of Phoenix, Arizona, but repping Brazil, 35 years old. Park, 10-1 overall. Fighting out of South Korea, repping South Korea, 29 years old. Man, I love flyweight fights. You know, they're always going to be bangers. They're always going to bring the action. They're always, you know, a little more high level than a lot of the other fights. This fight's going to be no exception, in my opinion. I'm going to be leaning Park, though. Now, you know, you might be saying, you know, why Park? You know, my man just got ran over by Tatsuro Taira. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's fucking Tatsuro Taira. Like, let's not disrespect the man. I mean, Park, to all his credit, he wasn't the original opponent, stepped up last minute, did his thing. And, you know, just listen, Tatsuro, he's just, that grappling is just next level. That being said, before that, Park cleaning out the competition. You know, what do you do with cans? You put them on the shelf. That's what Park was doing. My man is a grocer. He was packing these guys up. I don't think that really happens here. You know what? Let me take that back. I think there's a finish coming in this fight. Either way, right? So from a betting perspective, you like the under 2.5. Fight doesn't go. You know, let's talk about Bruno Silva a little bit. I like him. A little undersized for the division. A little washed, in my opinion. A decent striker. I think he's probably got Park covered in jiu-jitsu, but I think Park's got him covered in the wrestling. Park's probably better than him everywhere, in my opinion, except for the jiu-jitsu. Give me Park here for the win. Fight doesn't go either way. That's where I'm going to stand on business.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think this fight has the remedies to not go to decision 100% for a lot of reasons. Unders, violence, yes, all of it. I agree with you. Plus, the other thing that I have alarmingly, well, this is more of alarming news to Bruno Silva, but this guy Park has the dimensions of the same last two guys he fought. A guy who can strike, knows how to manage distance from the outside, that can defensively wrestle. Josh Van, even though not as big as Manel Kape, is a guy that can defensively wrestle and is very athletic and strong. Park is no different. Yeah, he got ran over by Taira, but Taira still had to spam him in that fight. Taira had a hard time controlling him initially until he got to like those second, third shots because Park had such a good get-up game, especially against the fence. I think Bruno's going to have a ton of trouble holding this guy down in this fight. He's going to be outclassed in the feet. He's going to be outsized. He's going to be outgunned. He's older. He's been knocked out his last two fights. I think it's going to be a three-peat, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Give me Park here to get this done via knockout.
Next fight on the card at men's middleweight, we have Azamat Bekoev going one-on-one with Yousri Belgaroui. Bekoev is 20-3 overall. Fighting out of Russia, hailing from Russia, 29 years old. Yousri is 8-3 overall. Fighting out of Connecticut, but repping the Netherlands, 33 years old. I'm expecting a little bit of violence in this particular fight. Belgaroui, Yousri, that name is a mouthful. Ayo, pause. The kickboxer, probably the better striker in this matchup. He's got an extensive background. Fought a couple guys. I'll let my brother get into that. But listen, I think this fight is going to boil down to the grappling, and that's where I'm going to be leaning Bekoev. That's where I'm going to be picking Bekoev. But tentatively, the reason why I say tentatively is because Azamat, since he's been in the UFC, really hasn't had to go to the grappling as much. A lot of his takedowns have been punch you in the face, you hit the ground, and he's right on top of you. So I had to dig a little deeper to see if the man can actually wrestle, right? I mean, I'm not going to assume that every man whose name ends in an EV or OEV can automatically grapple, right? That's a little fucked up in my part, right? The man can grapple, though. So, whew. So for that reason and that reason alone, I think Bekoev should have this covered. I am a little tentative again because, hey, I got to see it. I hope he's not one of those guys who just like falls in love with his hands, because then if he falls in love with his hands and doesn't really go to the grappling, this fight's way more competitive than it needs to be. But Bekoev with the grappling edge should get this one done, and I think it's a ground and pound. So that's what I got for this one.
Yeah, Belgaroui has an extensive kickboxing background. Had 2 fights with Poatan, had 2 fights with Izzy, lost all 4 of them, got stopped twice by Poatan. I mean, so it's not really like, you know, something to brag about, but he has shared the ring with those guys. But I'm with my brother here. I think Bekoev is going to have a clear wrestling edge here. The reason this fight is interesting, I think my brother's going to agree with me, is because Bekoev does his best work in the clinch, and he is going against a guy that is a master of clinch work. I think this fight can get interesting from there, but I would hope that if Bekoev starts getting into trouble catching an elbow or two from any professional Muay Thai / kickboxer that knows how to effectively work in close quarters like that that he's going to shoot a double leg or a single leg against the cage and get this big boy down. I think he will. I think he might even be able to land his own damage in the clinch because he hits very fucking hard.
Yes.
And that's why my brother is concerned about essentially him falling in love with his hands. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am too. So, but I do think he can land damage here and get him to the floor. But it's more of the wrestling edge to why I'm leaning him in this fight. Give me Bekoev here. I'll say by sub, ITD preferably, but I'll lean sub for podcast sake. We'll see how we bet it close to the fight time. We don't have official lines for this fight yet, so I can't give you any for the odds or lines in terms of like how this is gonna get lined, but Bekoev is official lean for this podcast.
Next fight on the card at men's middleweight, we have left hand to God, Danny Barlow going one-on-one with Shakur, the Jourdain Santos. Barlow is 9-1 overall, fighting out of Tennessee, 30 years old. Santos is 10-2 overall, fighting out of Miami, Florida, but repping Brazil, 28 years old. Banger of a fight. Another fight where I don't think there's going to be that much grappling. It's going to be a primarily swing and bang stand-up affair between two gentlemen who I think can swing and bang. I'm going to be leaning Danny Barlow here, though. Couple of reasons. One, he's got him covered in dimensions. He's going to be the bigger guy, slightly longer guy. Ayo. I think Barlow, in my opinion, is still the more technical striker. I like his boxing. I like his footwork. I think if this fight is going to stay on its feet, I think that's where he's got the advantage. And I think Santos, while very aggressive, got power of his own, will walk forward, will throw a bunch of volume, a little reckless. And I think Barlow is a better counterpuncher, and I think he should be able to get this one done. I am a little disappointed in Barlow's last performance in a fight where I thought he was winning, a fight where I would have liked to see Patterson, right? That's what it was. Actually test them in the grappling department here.
They didn't need to.
Didn't need to. The chin has me a little worried here. So for that reason and that reason alone, if you're looking at this from a betting perspective, I think, you know, the unders in general, just to cover both sides, under 2.5, fight doesn't go.
Agreed.
Fight ends in KO. Santos does have some grappling on him, but he's one of these guys who just loves, he loves his hands a little too much. Podcast sake, I'm still going Barlow. He should get this one done. But not with the highest degree of confidence.
Yeah, I'm on my brother's side here. He let me down that last fight, Barlow, and that was a big wake-up call to people, letting people know that his chin might be a little suspect. Not saying Sam Patterson doesn't hit hard, it's just that Sam Patterson has a lot of striking deficiencies, and Danny couldn't really capitalize as well. Capitalize meaning stop the fight as well as he probably, or as easily as he should have in that fight. I feel like that fight was set up for him to do some shit.
Yeah.
And he dropped the ball. There's another guy that can walk him down and can land damage on him. So I'm with my brother here on the violence play, but I think Barlow is going to find him. I think Barlow is going to catch him coming in because Santos doesn't have the best head movement. Give me Danny Barlow here by knockout. That's the official lean that I have for the podcast.
Next fight on the card at women's strawweight, we have Stephanie Luciano going one-on-one with Ravena Oliveira. Stephanie is 6-2-1 overall. Fighting out of Brazil, hailing from Brazil, 25 years old. Oliveira is 7-2-1 overall. Also fighting out of Brazil, also hailing from Brazil, 28 years old. Well, I know these two women got to be pissed because, you know, they're fighting on a Canadian card. They got left off the previous Rio card. So I'm pretty sure they both wanted to be on that one. They got shipped up to Canada instead. In terms of like, you know how I feel about this fight overall, it's a little bit on the low level side. It's not going to be the most spectacular fight in my opinion. We got two women here who I think are decent strikers. I think have decent jiu-jitsu, but I don't think this fight is going to have any kind of like finish equity or, you know, I don't think it's going to not go the distance. You know what I'm saying? Stephanie, I think, is the more technical fighter. I think her striking's a little cleaner, but if I had to choose, she might be the less powerful of the two women. Oliveira, on the other hand, even though she might hit a little harder, she only really has packed up cans on the regional scene. So this is probably her toughest fight to date outside of her debut. I don't know how to feel too much about this one. I'm still on the fence about who I really want to lean. I'll just lean Luciano only because, you know, slightly better technique. She had 2 fights with a jiu-jitsu player and, you know, did show that she is capable on the ground, off her back and on top. So give me Luciano for the win, but I'm going to say decision either way in a fight that probably doesn't really blow my socks off.
Agreed. Luciano, I think, has better skills. I think Oliveira's record is blown up by cans. Luciano has a better fluidity on the feet. She dealt with Alencar the first time it went to draw, which made sense because one gas, but the second fight was completely one-sided. She moves very smooth in there. She has fun in there. If you see her smiling, that means she's probably winning. Give me Luciano to win this fight by decision. I think Oliveira is tough enough to hang around. This is a good second fight for her after her debut fight, but I still think she's probably not UFC caliber in particular, to be frank. And not to be too harsh on the girl. Give me Luciano for that reason. By decision here.
Next fight on the card at men's bantamweight, we have the Renegade, Cody Gibson, going one-on-one with the Mongolian murderer, Aoriqileng. Gibson, 21-11 overall. Fighting out of California, 38 years old. Aoriqileng, 25-12 overall. Fighting out of China, repping China, 32 years old. This fight, I'm on the fence about where I want to lean. I feel like Aoriqileng on paper probably should win this one. But Cody Gibson is one of these guys that, like, you know, the guy's pushing 40. The way he fights is fucking strange to me because he goes at such a high pace in the beginning. But by the time he tapers off, it's kind of like the fight's already kind of in the bag. He's already kind of dictated the pace of the fight. And then his opponents don't really adjust and, you know, make the corrections that they need to make so they can win the fight. I feel like this is going to be more of the same for some reason. Aoriqileng, he's not really a take the lead, kind of dictate the pace of the fight kind of guy. I just feel like Cody Gibson going Cody Gibson this one somehow, some way. Give me Cody Gibson by decision. I think this fight probably goes all three. Not too happy about it. Not because I'm not a fan of either one of these guys, just because I don't know, it's just a weird fight for me to really understand. You know, this one, I feel like the Jackie Chan meme, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I look at this fight and I don't know where to go with it, you know? I'm just going to go Cody Gibson here. I think he puts a pace on Aoriqileng early, gets him off balance, takes him down, frustrates him, does some weird shit, wins the fight. There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. And this is a fight that I think is probably going to go to decision more times than not. Cody Gibson's only been stopped by Damon Blackshear as of recent. And we bet that fight, by the way. We just thought that there was significant deficiencies in the grappling game and in the cardiovascular system of Cody Gibson, which we were correct on. But this is a fight where I think Cody Gibson is going to be able to bank probably 2 rounds. I think he's going to have the clear wrestling and grappling edge. I think he's going to be able to push a pace. I trust him to win 2 rounds. But this is also another fight where I think it's probably going to go to decision. And I think the spread might be a good look here. Either way, I think if you can bank on a judge giving one of these guys, or both of them rather, a round unanimously, I think that's fair. Because I could see Cody Gibson's cardio falling off a cliff towards the end of the fight and Aoriqileng kind of just winning the 3rd round with Cody surviving. But I also could see Cody clearly banking 1 round in this fight as well. It's going to be that 2nd round that's very interesting, to be frank, in this fight.
I completely agree.
So the spread is an interesting look depending on how it's lined. I think it's going to go to decision even though Aoriqileng does crack. Just Cody's been historically durable. I just trust him to be savvy enough to stretch this out into a decision. And if you look at who he's lost to, Aoriqileng, Molina, Cody Djorden, Aiemann Zahabi, Raul Rosas, what do they all have in common? They're guys who push wrestling and push a pace. Cody Djorden is probably the closest example here because he's another guy that kind of falls off a cliff. But he's so much of a fucking dog that he's just not going to go away. I expect the same thing from Cody Gibson in this fight. Cody Djorden, Cody Gibson. Same result. Give me Cody Gibson to get this fight done via decision. We'll see how we play close to the fight time.
Next fight on the card at men's lightweight, we have the monster, Kyle Nelson, going one-on-one with the steamroller, Matt Frevola. Nelson, 16-6-1 overall. Fighting out of Ontario, repping Canada, 34 years old. Frevola, 11-5-1 overall. Fighting out of Tampa, Florida, 35 years old. Now, this is another fight that kind of like, you know, it perplexes me here because, you know, Frevola, I'm a fan of Frevola. We're both fans of Frevola. Frevola's a fan of the Mets as well.
Yes, he is.
So I know he's feeling the same pain we've been feeling.
He's also feeling the same happiness since the Yankees lost.
That's true. Fuck them bozos, you feel me? But, like, you know, back to the MMA, like, Frevola, he's going to be the more athletic, dynamic of the 2 guys here. He pushes a pace. He fights one way, and I think that's probably to a detriment here. Kyle Nelson, another guy who used to also, you know, throw caution to the wind, you know, early on in his career, kind of, like, readjusted. He kind of fights a little more safer, a little more methodical nowadays. And I think that's going to be the difference here, if I'm being completely honest. I think Kyle Nelson is not going to come in here reckless. Frevola is going to do his thing. Frevola is going to Frevola. He's the steamroller. He fights one way. He's a fan favorite for a reason. But Kyle Nelson, underrated hands, underrated grappling. He's a solid fighter. He's in Canada. And I just trust the thought process. I trust the process in general behind Nelson, and that's the reason why I'm going to be leaning Nelson for the win. I'm going to be picking Nelson for the win. 50-50 on how I think it ends, but I am going to be sticking to my guns here. I think Nelson gets this one done.
Yeah, I'm with you here. And another thing that my brother didn't mention that I do have some concerns about, I'm worried just a little bit about whether or not Frevola is shot-born here. The last fight, he got knocked out viciously. It was bad. That was probably one of the worst knockouts I've ever seen. That's his 4th knockout in his MMA career, and pretty bad, right? Pretty bad. All of them have been pretty bad. Terrence McKinney mauled him. BSD head kicked him. We were there for that fight in MSG.
That was crazy.
It was nasty. He was doing a good job in that fight. He just got caught.
He was losing.
Polo Reyes knocked him out early in his career, and then Faraz just put the cherry on top with that elbow, man. I mean, that was as vicious as it gets.
Yeah.
Well, actually, not even the elbow, it was a knee.
It was a knee, I think. Yeah, I think you're right.
I just feel like at 35 years of age, being knocked out 4 times in your career, once you get to that 3rd or 4th time, shit starts getting weird. Your fight responses, your punch response, your punch resistance starts getting, your cognitive functions after getting hit don't really work the same. I've noticed that with a lot of fighters. He's not only got the age there, but he's also got the wear there. So I'm worried in this fight about his punch resistance to Kyle Nelson, who, by the way, is not a devastating puncher, but Kyle is a sharp puncher. Kyle has a better process than Frevola. Kyle makes better decisions than Frevola at this point in their careers. I expect him to get him down, stay safe on the feet, stay safe on the ground. Since I trust him defensively a little more, I'm going to lean Kyle as the official dog play of this podcast, but I'm going to give you more of the reason why as well. On top of all that, it's also because Kyle Nelson in Canada seems to be a mythical creature. With that said, I'm going to lean Kyle as the dog play here, and that's going to be my pick for the podcast.
Next fight on the card at men's bantamweight, we have Marlon Chito Vera going one-on-one with Aiemann Zahabi. Vera, 23-10-1 overall. Fighting out of Irvine, California, but repping Ecuador, 32 years old. Zahabi is 13-2 overall. Fighting out of Quebec, Canada, repping Canada, 37 years old. Another interesting fight. This whole main card is pretty solid. This is a very good fight night card considering it's a non-numbered card. It's not a pay-per-view card, and it's a very good Canadian card. We haven't really had a good solid Canadian card in a while. We're fans of Marlon Vera here. We love the guy. We love the personality. If you're not a fan of the guy's story, if the guy's background, if the guy's attitude, man,
you're boring.
You're boring. go keep drinking your cups of water, your vanilla ice cream, your lame ass.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get some personality. Get the fuck out of here. That being said, Vera fights one way. He's a slow starter. He's got very good striking. Doesn't really go to the grappling as much. Durable as all hell. I'm going to be leaning Zahabi here, though, for the win. Zahabi, even though he's like 5 years older, has found the fountain of youth. He's been on a bit of a hot streak. Been winning his last couple fights. He's been looking really good, really impressive. I am worried about Zahabi's chin in this one. But I trust the IQ. I trust the process. I think Zahabi's going to be able to, at least steal the first round, maybe even take the second. I could also see a world where this fight is 1-1 going into the third. I think this fight goes to decision either way. If you like the Vera side, Vera by decision. You like the Zahabi side, Zahabi by decision. I like Zahabi. I think he gets this one done. I think he edges it. He's in Canada. And Vera, it's unfortunate because, again, I'm a fan of the guy, but, he doesn't really change the way he approaches fights. And I think that's to a detriment, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm with you. He has the Sean Strickland problem, Marlon Vera, where he will not get out of his own way. He only has one gear, and that gear, whether it's on high speed or low speed, he's just going to stay there for the whole contest. He's waiting for the one big shot, and that's really the issue. Now, Zahabi, the only reason this fight is interesting is because Zahabi's chin is questionable. But what I will say is, I thought he lost the last fight against Jose Aldo. They gave it a unanimous decision on his side. I mean, Jesus, not even a split. And it was clear. For me, I thought Jose did enough. They went a unanimous decision for Zahabi. I don't even know how they got there. I also will say, because that fight was in Canada and this fight is in Canada, and GSP and his older brother are pretty much legends in the county, Marlon has to knock him out to win this fight. I think if you're going to bet Marlon, you probably have to bet the knockout, because I don't think he's going to win the minutes in this fight. I also don't think he's going to win the judges in this fight, because we've seen it before. This is not a new story with Zahabi, unfortunately. Give me Zahabi here by decision, because I trust that he is going to be able to change and adjust his game accordingly for Marlon, as well as implement the wrestling and hold Marlon down for certain stretches of this fight. I also trust his fight IQ enough not to get finished in this fight, but I also will be picking Marlon for the simple fact that he is on Canadian soil, and the judges are going to blatantly rob him. Well, the blatantly rob his opponent, rather, if this fight is anywhere close to the vicinity of being a split or Marlon Vera decision. Give me Zahabi here by decision.
Next fight on the card at women's flyweight, we have Manon Fiorot going one-on-one with Jasmine Jasudavicius. Manon is 12-2 overall. Fighting out of France, repping France, 35 years old. Jasudavicius is 14-3 overall. Fighting out of Ontario, repping Canada, 36 years old. I've noticed that this entire card, well, for the most part, at least for the main card, I've been having to like separate my fandom from these fights, so I could try to make a really unbiased pick here, right? You know, try to keep it neutral for the people, you know, for the viewers, for the listeners. We're fans of Jasudavicius. I'm a fan of Jasudavicius. I'll throw it on the table, right? I mean, the girl's tough. I like that she walks forward. She don't give a fuck. Throws punches and bunches. She's got grappling. I like her attitude. I like everything about this girl, but she's going against a woman here in Manon. Manon's last 3 fights look better than, unfortunately, anything that, not anything. I mean, let me take that back, because, I mean, Jasmine, her last fight was against, Andrade. I don't want to say it's kind of been a bit of a soft path here, but I think it's been an appropriate path, you know, building her up. She's been beating up a whole bunch of, Brazilians on her way this way. Manon, back-to-back. Shevchenko, just coming off a title fight. She lost, obviously. Before that, Blanchfield. Before that, Rose. I think she's just the better fighter, at least when it comes to the striking. When it comes to the grappling, and I think that's where he's going to get really spicy, I'm going to say that I think Manon is going to be physical enough to stave off a lot of the grappling attempts from Jazz here. Keep it primarily on the feet, where I think she's going to have the advantage. I think Manon's going to be the harder hitter here. I think she has the better footwork. I'm going to be picking Manon here for the win. I do really want to see Jasmine kind of like ascend and get to that championship level, but I think this might be just a very big leap. She is in Canada. She is a mythical beast there. She hasn't lost in Canada, so, I mean, we don't know, but give me Manon for the win.
Yeah, the UFC is really trying to test Jasmine's gangster with the undefeated streak.
They really are.
And this is a big step up in competition. I think it's too big, to be frank with you. I think jumping from Jessica Andrade, and this is not Jessica in her prime anymore. This is aftermarket Jessica, to Manon. Huge step up. This is a girl in Manon that I picked against Valentina Shevchenko. If she doesn't break her nose in the first round, I think she wins that fight. And if they fought again, I'd pick her again. I can't get behind Jazz here, and I love Jasmine on this podcast. You can go back to the previous episodes and see how much we've ridden for this girl. But I think this is a little too much. And I think that Manon is going to be the first girl that she's going to fight that's actually going to be able to match her physically, really, and maybe even be a superior to her in there. This is a girl in Jasmine that had a hard time taking down Tracy Cortez. She does not have the physical qualities of a Manon Fiorot. And this is Tracy Cortez before she went on the strength and conditioning program. Tracy's probably more physical now, and Jasmine beat a lesser version of her. I think this is Manon. I think Manon gets this done via decision. I think Jasmine is super durable. I think she's going to be able to take the shots in there. I think if she goes to her back in this fight, Manon probably won't follow her down. Will probably wait for her to get back up. And if she does go down with her, I think Jasmine will be able to control her in her guard, because she does have grappling and wrestling, a very high level of it in this division. Give me Manon Fiorot to win this fight via decision. That's the official pick for the podcast.
Next fight on the card, and is currently constituted the co-main event of the evening at men's welterweight, we have the Trailblazer, Kevin Holland, going one-on-one with proper Mike Malott. Holland, 28-14 overall. Fighting out of Fort Worth, Texas, 32 years old. Malott, 12-2-1 overall. Fighting out of Sacramento, California, but repping Canada, 33 years old. What a high variance fight, in my opinion.
Great fight. Tough fight to bet on.
Tough fight to call from a betting perspective, in my opinion, because this fight literally has so many ways it could end. Both men could win by decision. Both men could knock each other out. Both men could sub each other, in my opinion.
And the only reason the knockout is even a proper thing for the Kevin Holland side is because of how badly he got touched up by D-Rod his last fight.
And that fight
showed me a lot.
Was not only a couple months ago, but I thought was, I guess for lack of a better term, not to disrespect D-Rod, because I'm a fan of D-Rod, but I thought that was not a layup. I'm looking for a better word, but I'm going to say layup for now. Not to disrespect.
That's fair.
I thought it was a bit of a layup for Kevin Holland, And, hey, I mean, D-Rod put it on him, man. D-Rod showed him the footwork. He showed him that jab. He showed him the hands and was able to, just outpiece the Trailblazer.
Yeah.
Let's keep it a buck. And he got hurt in that fight. Quick turnaround, fighting Mike Balot in his home turf. A guy who I think could probably implement the same more or less kind of game plan.
With better wrestling and grappling.
Exactly. Than like that D-Rod did, And this is like a Kevin Holland where the quick turnaround scares me. It screams less locked in Trailblazer and more like I'm just fighting for the love of the game Trailblazer again.
And the money.
No problem with that, but that's a guy that's just hard to kind of like bet on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to be leaning Mike Malott here. I don't know how the fuck he gets the win. This fight can end in a multitude of ways on both ends. So from a betting perspective, I'm probably just going to be looking at lines. I'm going to be line watching, and anything that sticks out in particular, I'll circle. I'll debate it with my brother. You'll get the official picks, right before fight time. And, if you want to tailor fade, that's on you. But it's going to be one of those really tricky ones to approach. Even if we decide to approach it, who knows? Maybe we just stay the fuck off of it. But I'm going to be leaning Mike here. The kid is good, outside of the last 2 minutes against Neil Magny, where he kind of just shit the bed. I think that's something that he really, holds here in the chest. For the people who can't see me on the camera, I feel like he's learned from that, and and he's not a bad fighter. I think his grappling is underrated. His striking is much improved. I'm gonna be slightly leaning here Malott for the win, which is sad because I like Kevin. And another one of these fights where I can see it going either way, but that's all I got. I'm just gonna keep rambling. I'm just gonna cut myself off here.
Yeah, I still think Mike Malott's a fraud, by the way, but
I respect it.
I do think that he has made adjustments to address his cardiovascular issues by being a little more patient and picking his shots. Kevin was a slow starter in that last fight too. I feel like the UFC's propping Mike here a little bit. It's on his soil. There's a guy in Kevin who has some damage on him 2 months ago. A guy who is ranked. I think this is Malott's first ranked fighter. Typically, I would say dog or pass because the fight I do think has a degree of being very close. But if you look at the analytics, I think like 70% of favorites have won this year for the UFC. I might be a little more or a little less. It's in the ballpark of that.
If favorites have been hitting. I don't know the percentages, but they've been kind of clicking.
They've been clicking. So for me, it's a situation where Mike is a slight favorite here. You don't have to lay a ton of juice on him. I think he's going to have the wrestling upside here. I think he's going to be able to get Kevin down. I think he has good enough grappling to mitigate a lot of what Kevin's going to do. Mike is not small for the division, so his physicality is not going to be too much of an issue. And I think that he has cleaner punching, even though Kevin hits harder. I'm going to leave him a lot here, not with a high degree of confidence, but we'll see how we bet it close to the fight side, to my brother's point.
Next fight on the card, and is currently constituted the main event of the evening at men's middleweight. We have RDR, Reinier de Ridder, going one-on-one with all-in Brandon Allen. De Ridder is 21-2 overall. Fighting out of the Netherlands, repping the Netherlands, 35 years old. Brandon Allen, 25-7 overall. Fighting out of Louisiana, 29 years old. Not the original opponent for RDR. This was supposed to be Fluffy here. Fluffy unfortunately had to fall out. I was really looking forward to that fight. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yep.
This fight is also pretty good. Just, all cards on the table. But I'm going to be leaning RDR here. I think he's going to be able to get this one done. Another one, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but listen, I'm a fan of Brandon Allen. I like the guy. I think he's got underrated hands, underrated jiu-jitsu. He's just an underrated fighter, a little overlooked. The IQ was probably lacking a little early in his career. He's able to tighten that shit up a little bit.
A little bit, because he still dunks out after a while, you know what I'm saying?
Sometimes he takes all in maybe too literally, you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where for Brendan Allen, I'm struggling to find like a real clear path for him. RDR is just a guy who I did hate on. I keep it a buck. For me, he was just a better GM3. He's got better hands than I thought, better striking than I thought. The guy's good. But he's fucking awkward. He's kind of hard to cap. He's kind of hard to mimic in the gym if you're his opponents. He's like the grappling version of fucking Prochazka. Just awkward. The striking's awkward. He's got a really good jab. The grappling is very awkward, but he's very good on the ground. Brendan Allen probably has the advantage, in my opinion, on the feet. I think he's probably the more technical of the two guys.
Might even be the better wrestler, by the way.
But I think the Ridder's jab, underrated. I think that's going to be a real problem for Allen, in my opinion. And then when it comes to the grappling, Brendan Allen should be able to win here, maybe with just straight control wrestling. But this is all in we're talking about. This guy has got ADHD with his hands and his movement. He's got to do something. You know, I don't think he can just follow a very boring game plan, because I think that's the way he could win this. It's got to be very boring. It's got to be boring. And this is not in Brendan's DNA to be boring. And I think that's what he needs to do to beat the Ridder. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think the Ridder is going to have him covered on the ground. I think the Ridder is going to present problems with the jab. I think the Ridder wins this fight. Now, does he get the next middleweight shot? I don't know. But I think he gets this one done. So
I'm with you. I think Brendan Allen's the way better fighter all around, but I have a hard time believing he's going to have a lot of success on short notice. He's a guy that doesn't have historically the best gas tank, doesn't have historically the best fight making decision, didn't have a full camp for this fight, didn't have a full camp to game plan or get his cardiovascular system up to par. He's a guy in RDR who's going to walk him down, going to be in shape, going to be bigger than him. When you have two guys with equal grappling skill, the guy who's bigger usually wins, and this is going to be an RDR situation where he is going to be a lot bigger, even though Brendan Allen is big for the weight class.
I mean, the guy's he's built like a moose. Literally, that guy is humongous.
Yeah, I thought he lost to Rob Whittaker. I'll be honest with you. I don't think, I know people that, I think maybe a lot of people, or some people rather, are on the other side, the RDR edge that I thought Rob did enough. But regardless, it was still a close fight, so I can't be too mad at it. But I just don't think he won. But I do think there's a fight where I think RDR can find a stoppage. I think the big difference in this fight is going to be the cardio. If Brendan Allen can do what he did against Vittoria and keep him on the outside with the jab and then implement his wrestling to control him in certain points of this fight, I think he can win a fight like that if he chooses to make it boring and smart. But to my brother's point, I've never seen a Brendan Allen fight that's like that. I think RDR is probably going to get to him, get to the clinch, drop elbows on him, drop knees to the body. I think RDR probably stops him with a knee to the body, probably mid to late rounds in this fight. Sad to say, I think him not having a full camp and him not training for the size of this guy with the knees and the clinch is going to be huge. And I think that's where RDR is going to have his most success. I think he's going to be able to have clinch work against him up against the cage more times than not. I think he's going to find himself there, leaning with the jab to my brother's point, and then just holding him up and then dropping knees and dropping elbows in between. And then even if Brendan does get the break, he's going to be exhausted trying to get this big moose off of him. Pause.
Hey.
I think RDR finds a stoppage here mid to late rounds. RDR is the official link for this podcast, and follow us on all social media platforms to see how we're going to bet it, if we bet it at all.
And that does it for our UFC Vancouver coverage. Moving right along to the Sweet Science, moving right along to Brooklyn on a card with the tagline "Farewell to Brooklyn." We got a main event that kind of piqued our interest a little bit here, and it's starring Danny Garcia, and he's going one-on-one with Daniel Gonzalez. Garcia is 37-4 overall, fighting out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 37 years old. Gonzalez, El Gallo, is 22-4-1 overall, fighting out of Woodhaven, New York, 35 years old.
Good fight to talk about. I don't know if it's necessarily a good fight to bet on. Danny Garcia, we'll start with him. Danny Garcia got stopped in his last fight by Lara. You want the real, he quit in there. He quit. I had that fight to go over. Pissed me off. Pissed me off.
I remember that fight.
And I'm going to be honest with you. It's not because of damage. It's because he quit. He wasn't getting touched up a ton in the fight. He did have like a bad round, so I get it. But to fold up like that, it's very hard to get behind a man that's going to fold up like that. We have him coming into this fight. I believe this is a retirement fight. Just like MMA, I'm going to say the same thing with boxing. Very weird in terms of betting a guy in his retirement stages of his career.
Yeah. Because unconfirmed, by the way. I'm not sure if it's actually his retirement. It feels like a retirement fight, though.
He's been hinting at it for a while.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who has built up to 154, wanted to become another division weight champion, lost to Lara, came short. Now he's fighting a guy in Daniel Gonzalez, who, by the way, and this is another interesting fact, they're going to have similar dimensions, but this is a guy in Daniel Gonzalez, also body, by the way, hold it down.
Hey.
He has not fought at 154 before. So this is going to be Daniel Gonzalez's first fight at 154, Danny Garcia's third fight, if I'm correct, because he had a fight with Arislan De Lara and Jose Benavidez Jr. at this weight. This will be his third official fight at this weight class. This is his promotion. I don't like necessarily how Daniel Gonzalez delivers punches, to be frank with you. He's okay defensively, but not great. He does get hit, but he is durable. He has only been stopped once, and it was a long time ago. He punches from his elbows at times, which as a boxer, it's a little insane. I've seen I think it was 2 fights ago, he was fighting an Irishman where he was punching from his elbows. A little alarming, but this is a fight where Danny Garcia, considering age, considering questions about retirement, considering his volume, because he does not throw a lot of volume, I feel like this is a fight, on top of the fact that it is his promotion promoting this fight, where he should cruise to a victory here. I'm going to say via decision, considering the low volume and Daniel Gonzalez's durability, even though he's moving up in weight. But since Danny is low volume and doesn't have a ton of punching power at this weight class from what I saw, and they call him Swift because he supposedly has fast hands. Don't know who gave him that fucking nickname. They lied to him. You know, I know the man's got 6 toes. He's extremely durable.
Yeah, you got to be careful, man. These dudes from Philly, you know what they say about him.
Yeah, I've heard. You know, quote is that. Look that shit up if you haven't heard. But he's 37 years old. I don't know if he has that hurt or that want to be in the hurt business as much as he may portray that he wants to be. I see him cruising to a decision here. Give me Danny Garcia by decision here. That's the official lean for the podcast.
And that does it for our sweet science coverage, our boxing coverage. That does it for our UFC coverage. That does it for our combat coverage. Without any further ado, that's a wrap for episode 118. I'll throw it over to my brother to take us home.
Like, comment, subscribe, follow Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Everybody enjoying the visual portion of this podcast. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date.
And for all of our audio listeners, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, you already know. Love you guys. Holla at you guys. See you next week for episode 119. Enjoy the fights this weekend. This Canadian card is actually pretty stacked. It's going to be a very entertaining card. See Danny Garcia's retirement fight. If there's any boxing that we didn't talk about, please drop into the comments as you did last time or the last couple of podcasts ago, roughly.
Yeah, man. If you're interested in anything in general, throw it on there. We'll respond to it as soon as we can. And, you know, hey, if it's a fight that we didn't cover, let us know. We might give you a quick breakdown on it.
And that's a wrap for episode 118. Tune in next week for episode 119. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Until then, peace, love, later. We out.